From a bunker in beautiful Parkchester, the Bronx, it's Electoral Dysfunction. Now, here's your host, Tom Brennan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Electoral Dysfunction, the show where comedians and experts debate the news of the week from the safety of their quarantine. I'm your host, Tom Brennan. Thank you for being with us for another week. And what a week, huh? The President of the United States, who as of this recording is no longer Donald John Trump, took the oath of office and became president. That's right. Joseph R. Biden Jr. is now our president. Congratulations, President Biden, and congratulations to all of us who made it to see President Biden. Not all of us made it these last 4 years. And, you know, I was thinking during his speech 4 years ago, I guess right before the 2016 election, I left a career of 10 years working in the comic book industry to work in politics. And it was something I'd always wanted to do. I had to take that chance and that risk and that leap to something new. But it was huge, right? I'd worked in comics for 10 years and, a couple of good books I worked on right above me in the middle. I had established a decent reputation for myself, and I was leaving all that behind for a world I'd never worked in before, and something brand new. And, you know, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were about to meet for the presidency, and of course, we all knew Hillary was going to win. And I just thought to myself, what an exciting time to work in politics. What in a week's time, we'll have a woman as president-elect. And that didn't happen. But it turns out it was, in fact, an interesting time to work in politics. And the last 4 years, you know, by no means my job. There's far more important people to the fight to throw Donald Trump out of power. But a friend of mine once said, you know, kind of compared my job to, you're in one of the armies at the Battle of Gettysburg. You just, you're towards the back, but you were there. The work we did matter in these last 4 years and made a difference. And I always think about the day after the inauguration in 2017, the day of the first Women's March, when I had to work that day. And I always think I was working that day while my mother and father were protesting outside Trump Tower. My sister and my brother-in-law were protesting in Houston, Texas. I know Texas, we want it to go blue soon, and certainly Houston is a little bluer than the rest of the state, but it's still Texas. And my wife, Amanda, was down in Washington, D.C., protesting in the largest protest I think D.C.'s ever seen, certainly bigger than the inauguration the day before. And I thought about how much it mattered to them and the work I did in the last 4 years. You know, it was for them. It was for 5 people who I love and who had the courage to stand up early on. And I just wanted to get to a place where they weren't so terrified and upset and ashamed of their president. And you know, Joe Biden was not my first choice in the primary. I've always liked him. He wasn't my first choice. But it is incredible to have a president who does the job again. A president who takes it seriously. I mean, they didn't have a plan for the vaccine. Makes me mad thinking about it. But it is amazing what a weight it has been lifted just by mere fact that that no longer is the nuclear football in the hand of someone who, you know, spent 4 years probably trying to figure out if he could launch a drone strike on Rosie O'Donnell. With that in mind, I actually need to be off this week. So in the spirit of unity, I'm going to turn moderating duties over to our old pal, Robert George. Bringing people together. Biden asked for unity. Put a Republican in charge. I'm sure he has strong opinions on the deficit all of a sudden. But before we get to that, we're going to have a quick visit with an old friend. Ned Thorne, star wipe me to the first guest.
X3, read all about it. Read all about it. We're all back to normal.
Boy, talk about a good news week. Ladies and gentlemen, Electoral Dysfunction fan favorite. My very own therapist was asking when we'd see him again just today. Newsboy Phil, hero of millions. Newsboy Phil, welcome back to Electoral Dysfunction. How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel normal, and normal ain't bad.
No.
For me, normal's about going to sleep with heartburn, but the last 4 years has been going to sleep with heartburn with a side of swallowed corkscrew. Read all about it. You did.
We did, yep. Well, yeah, as you said, this week, Joe Biden took office. Donald Trump got in his helicopter and flew away. I believe he flew away on a plane while I Did It My Way was crooning in the background. And we haven't heard from him since. What do you think about that? What do you think? Like, the world changed overnight.
It's fine. Me being 100 years old, I'm a fan, or at least a student of the 3-act structure, and it feels at least like the second act interlude. I don't think the monster's dead, but I think we're in a position of holding the gun inside the house. You know what I mean?
I know what you're
Read
saying.
all about it. Read film theory.
Read film theory. Yes, first of all, read film theory if you have time. But as a quick reminder, folks who might not be familiar with him, Newsboy Phil is, of course, a 1920s newsboy who has been cursed to eternal life, continuing to walk the streets of man, hawking the news and keeping us all informed.
That's right. And we got some headlines this week.
All right, take it away. Sell some papers, my friend.
All right. The inauguration was this week, and I have to admit, it doesn't feel different for a poor newsboy. All those coats on display made me jealous for basic human warmth,
Sure, of course.
Also coats.
Yep.
For
coats.
Yeah. Oh boy. That Joe Biden, he's a fellow who likes Irish poetry. Who are you, my factory boss? Read all about it.
Yep.
Yes, I can't wait for the 3 a.m. recitations of James Joyce. We're all in big trouble.
Oh, that'd be great if he went on Twitter and just read Joyce at 4 a.m. on Saturdays. Oh, my goodness.
But he wasn't the guy that made the headlines at the inauguration. It was one Bernie Sanders.
That's true.
That's true. It's because he had the best coat.
Yep.
Stick some cats in there and you have what I like to call a moving sauna.
Of course, yes. Bernie Sanders making some news or making waves on the internet, becoming memeable for his mittens knit by, I believe, a teacher up in the greater Vermont area, and his big warm winter coat, which is the same coat he wore to Donald Trump's inauguration. He wore it when he swore in New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. That's his inaugural coat, I guess.
Yeah, congratulations on having a coat.
Maybe he'll put through universal coat care as part of his big next initiatives.
It was good enough for people to not make fun of Chuck Schumer for saying Trump gave people an erection.
That's it. Yeah, that's true.
You don't watch C-SPAN?
I did see that.
Out of a storefront window?
That's true. I do watch it, but not out of a storefront window. I forgot Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, now the leader of the United States Senate, while invoking the insurrection that Donald Trump provoked at the Capitol, accidentally made a boner of his own and said erection, which I have to say, Donald Trump never gave me an erection, not once. Phil, what about you?
Never. I don't even know what that is. I'm a boy.
That's right. Good point.
I know that he definitely did give erections to a bunch of boys who stormed the Capitol last week.
Very nice.
Fortunately, I wasn't sleeping anywhere nearby, so I couldn't be reached for comment.
Of course not. Oh, man. So what did you think of the first few days of the Biden administration? A flurry of executive orders. They're getting COVID-19 vaccines, better distribution on vaccines across the country. What do you think? Do you think better days ahead on the virus?
Well, better days ahead, except he's doing that thing again where he's stopping old people from dying. Again.
You'd rather more old people die?
Well, I just like seeing them die because I wish I could.
That's true. That's a good point.
But I will say, in one of his plans that was snuck past everybody else in the news because they're too busy worrying about the Air Force One paint job, he did put something up about homeless shelters and how FEMA can fund homeless shelters throughout September. Up to September. Yeah. And it can be anything. It can be anything. This is huge.
Yeah.
It's, as he has said in the past, a big fucking deal because many people are homeless. Let me tell you, it's crowded. It's hard to be a famous homeless person.
What structure are you currently living in, and could FEMA reimburse you for it?
I'm sleeping underneath the pool table inside the pool hall across from the Halloween Adventure. You know, I'm eyeing that baby up.
Yep. Well, we'll get the resale value on that and get it out to FEMA. What else in the news this week really piqued your interest? Phil, you're a guy on the street. You know what people are talking about. You know what the story is. What else you got? What happened this week that you want to take a few swings at?
Well, no one's talking about this, but it happened. Rats
Yep.
took over Chipotle in Washington Heights, living better
Really?
than me, eating better than me, as always.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I wish I could scurry through pipes too. I wish I could, because, you know, until this winter, the pandemic ends, I'm still waiting to sneak inside of that night armor inside of the Halloween Adventure, you know?
Sure.
Good insulation. It may not be metal, but it's good enough for me.
Right, that's a good point.
Also, Trump pardoned a bunch of people. I know they were hoping to be the Capitol rioters. I know they were hoping to be pardoned, but he pardoned Democrats, mostly for
That's
just
true.
being bad with taxes, which I guess there's your answer. He does have empathy.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, the guy has a heart. He pardoned Steve Bannon on the way out the door. Pardoned Judge Janine's husband, I guess, like an hour before he got in the helicopter to get out of Dodge. You know, didn't pardon any of his kids, though, despite people expecting he'd pardon his kids or try to pardon himself. Neither of that happened.
I feel like he would be the first person to throw them to the wolves if anybody came knocking, though. So I'm not really surprised.
That's a good
You
point.
got to have him fresh and able to be prosecuted in order for him to escape.
Yeah,
That's the whole. That's
That's a
his
good
whole
point.
motto. But I gotta say, listen, pal. Listen, Orange Dynamo. I know the Democrats, but I'm a Democrat too. Half these people cheated on their taxes. I stole one pie at Mayor LaGuardia's house, and now I'm cursed to walk this earth. Pardon me.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, that pie was just sitting out on the front porch of Gracie Mansion, and just like the fumes came in and just picked you up by the nose. Well, Newsboy Phil, it's good to see you. It's good to see you back to normal in a new world. You know, before we take off, any parting words for the people?
That's it. You know, it was a time to scream, and it's still a time to scream, but now try and make people smile, because, you know, maybe we need more smiles than you know, the smile when you want things to go well. Hey, things are
Sure.
going okay. And
The white
maybe
knuckle smile.
if you get a vaccine, hug some folks. I don't know if it works. That's it. Hug some folks if you can. Bye.
Hug some folks
Read
if
all
you can,
about it.
says Newsboy Phil. Ned Thorne, star wipe us to Robert George in the panel.
And we'll go. Well, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. That's right, folks. Welcome to Electoral Dysfunction. And yes, it's Robert George filling in for Tom Brennan, because like Electoral Dysfunction, we believe in the peaceful transfer of power, just like the rest of the country. And I didn't have to go over to Tom's place and ransack his place to let me take it over. He just handed me the keys freely. We've got a fantastic. In fact, I'm tempted to call it an all-star group to talk us through this week. And this is the first week. This is the first week in 4 years where a host, even the fill-in host of Electoral Dysfunction, can say the President of the United States is not Donald John Trump, but it is somebody with the name of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. So I had to kind of get that out of the way. But first, let me introduce this fantastic group right here. Starting off, and not in order of importance at all. Let's roll the dice and just go by in alphabetical order. We've got Hannah Bell, who is everybody's favorite deacon, veteran, and comedian. Hannah, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Robert, for this peaceful transfer of power and I look forward to 4 more years of Robert as moderator.
Oh.
Let that be. Let that be between the two of us. And we've got speaking of veterans, Alana Duffy, great Army vet, and the founder of the AI startup Pathfinder Labs. So basically, she is running a startup which will eventually put all of us out of work. So Alana, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me for
Great.
now until the robots replace us.
Until the robots replace us, exactly. And Mr. James Heskey, who is a sports and podcast headline writer for The Onion, and arguably the most dangerous and outrageous person that we ever have on our panel. So, James, thank you.
Considering there are 2 veterans on this show, that is not true. I think the 2 veterans could absolutely kick my ass. So I have weak shoulders and can be taken down very easily.
But on the other hand, James, aren't you? Are you in Philadelphia? Or are you? Where,
I'm in New York.
are you? You are up in New York. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I think of you in Philadelphia for some reason. Anyway.
Thank you. I think.
Exactly.
Is it because I'm just an angry white guy? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I guess that's basically it.
Okay, got it.
Your words, sir. Your words. And finally, our last but not least, Mr. Oliver Willis, who is beaming in from Florida. Oliver is a writer with the American Independent, and speaking of veterans, a longtime veteran of the blogging years, which I'm being told there's like a comeback for them now. So who knows?
Supposedly. But I have to say, as someone with the last name W and someone says we're going to go in alphabetical order, that's very triggering to me. I have a lifetime of always coming in like, unless there's a XYZ, I'm always the last guy whenever you go alphabetical.
And Oliver, as someone who's known you since like the mid 2000s, back when we were both doing the blogging thing, I know how much just the letter W is kind of triggering
right,
for you.
Exactly. That happened this week. That actually happened this week to me. So yeah.
There you go.
If we work together, we could PHW.
And Oliver also brought in a sidekick, Kal-El. So that's a good thing. Kal-El may be contributing a little bit later on. So folks, once again, we are in the first 3 or 4 days of the Biden administration, and so let's just kind of we're still getting it. We're still having some of the warm and fuzzies that may be fading pretty soon when like political reality kicks in. But what are the thoughts of from inauguration day? The first couple of days where we've got, I don't know, we're up to like 165, 175 executive orders and stuff like that. So how do we think? How do we think our fine the new president is doing so far?
Great. I want to say I'll go first. I'll say great. It's actually they've hit the ground running. And like they actually have gone through with it, which is one of the things you worry about, especially with Biden, because he's Mr. I love to slap the other guys on the back and let's all get along. And I mean, he's made a lot of overtures towards that, but at the same time, he's doing a lot of things that are making Republicans upset, which is making me happy. like that's my barometer. It's not necessarily that. Yeah, it's great that he's doing great things, but the more I hear the Republicans scream about the things that he's doing, that's like my validation that like, oh, maybe they actually are good things. The more I hear, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, it's like everything is resetting. Talking about deficits again, it's like a reboot.
Well, as now I'm the moderator here, so I'm going to be kind of trying to hold it back in some of my opinions as I normally would. But I'm the closest thing that electoral dysfunction gets to having a Republican on. So I will make that quick observation that there's nothing quite like a Democratic president to make Republicans act like Republicans again. So I'm almost feeling more comfortable with myself. So this is kind of an interesting thing.
It's good for you too.
There we go. Hannah, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. I'm feeling something that I haven't felt in 4 years, hope. It's wonderful to have a commander-in-chief who is, for me, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I'm not joking, like coherent. I watched most of his speech about action, about unity, and that made me feel very hopeful. And among the executive orders that I read about that give me hope are getting back into the Paris Climate Accord, immigration travel bans being lifted, just restoring the focus from exclusion and like dominance, and this is how it's going to be, to like the environment matters and human beings matter. And I especially loved Biden's words around unity, because just because Biden's president and these executive orders are moving, it doesn't undo everything we saw on January 6th. Like, we have a tremendous amount of work to do as a country to somehow reconcile. So it's just like, I have hope, but there's also a tremendous amount of work to be done.
Fair enough. And I'll also add on that, it's kind of interesting seeing a new president inaugurated on Wednesday, and the domestic chaos that's actually going on is actually happening in Russia, as we found out this weekend, as opposed to actually happening here. So that's kind of a change. It's almost as if, I don't know. Vladimir Putin is like losing control in both of his countries, or both of the countries he's ruled over for the last 4 years. Anyway, Ilana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, just bringing up the Paris Climate Accord and Senator Cruz saying, "Oh, this shows that we care more about the citizens of Paris than we care." So all that really occurs to me on that front is, so now we're back to this, like, we'll just pick apart anything that they say. And, it's a case of saying, hey, Senator Cruz, that the Paris Climate Accord is just where it was signed. It's like most of the other accords, that end wars and stuff like that. But it's cool. You're just trying to run the country, but you might want to look that up every now and then. So in terms of there being a lot of work to do, I think that there's going to be a significant amount of work, and I don't know how ingrained some of these folks are that are just so opposed to having a President Biden that they are now nitpicking over the name of where a climate accord is signed. And so that still makes me a bit nervous, but overall it feels better. And like, if the Republicans were still the Republican Party, I would be closer to a Republican on certain views. So you're not entirely alone. I'm pretty moderate, but
I do have to admit one thing that, and I can't take credit for this observation, but somebody said that the Republicans, not all of them, but the Republicans seem to have lost their fastball, and Ted Cruz is a good example of that because I think the line he used was, well, this goes to show that that Joe Biden is more interested in the people of Paris than the people of Pittsburgh. And somebody said, he said, Ted, you could have just said he's more interested in the people of Paris, France, than the people of Paris, Texas. It's right there. It's right there. And it's like, I mean, and I've known. I first met Ted Cruz about 20 years ago. I was at this political junket in Phoenix, Arizona for it was like a New Year's. It was like the conservative. It was like the conservative version of that thing that the liberals do down in South Carolina over New Year. Oh, Renaissance Weekend, right?
Yeah,
the conservatives actually call it Dark Ages Weekend.
Stuff out of the spinal fluid.
They call it Dark Ages Weekend, and I met this this up and coming young lawyer named Ted Cruz back then, and let's just say he was slightly different then, but that's one of those things where what goes on in Phoenix over New Year's stays in Phoenix.
Thank goodness.
Anyway, James Heskey, your thoughts on inauguration and the first few days?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go last. I get it, white guys. We had 4 years, and it's our turn to just settle down a little bit.
4 years and 400 years. Yes. So so there you go.
No, to piggyback on what Alana was saying, I think that it's one thing that Ted Cruz knows about the fact that what the Paris Climate Accord, what that means. He also just knows that his constituents don't know. So he's just full of shit. Like he has no idea. And as somebody from Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh mayor is one of the guys who signed on early to agree to still follow the Paris Climate Accord within the city, and just as soon as Trump backed out. So shout out to Bill Peduto, who's a fantastic mayor of my hometown. So yeah, Ted Cruz absolutely sucks, and he looks like in like movies where or shows where like vampires are a thing. He looks like a senator from one of those movies where he's like a vampire who became a senator. He's not really. I don't even think he's a human being at this point. But he sucks. I think we're never gonna be able to overcome right now the fact that the Republicans are all in on this push of we're not going to try to have good faith arguments. Everything is going to be horseshit. So we might as well just, from the Democrats' point of view, do exactly what we're doing right now, which is just push forward good policy. And some of the things I really like Biden doing was among the things that people have said already. He's also pushing forth more food aid and things to really help poor people, which are also going to help lots of Trump supporters and lots of Republicans. It's just good policy. And I think if you want to talk about how you win people over, you're not going to win over most of these people. But if there are some persuadable people, and the way you do that is you're not going to win them over with facts. You're going to win them over with half-decent policy of just helping them. And they're going to say, oh, when those guys were in, I actually had food in my pantry, and I had a job, and I had that was better. I liked that. And you could win over that 2 or 3% that help keep you in office, and that's, to me, that's the best idea.
Well, one of the things that amongst the multitude of executive orders that Biden passed was signed, I should say, not passed, signed, was the overturning of the Keystone Pipeline, which the thing is, though, from the Republican perspective, that's something that's going to undermine jobs. Now, I realize there are both there are environmental and Native American concerns about the Keystone Pipeline, but from a job perspective, that's something obviously that Republicans are zeroing in on as trying to paint as trying to paint Biden as being anti-jobs. So I'm going to
they would find something. They would always find something. You're never going to be perfect. So like there's no reason to try to play that game. It is a fool's errand to play that game. Do the right thing and just overall have good policy. The idea of trying to play perfect for these guys it's never going to work. So I say just keep doing the right thing.
Getting rid of the pipeline a good thing?
For me, I was raised in North Dakota, so I have many of the people I was raised with are for the job aspect, and that's a temporary phase. Once it's built, then the environmental repercussions are greater than any temporary job situation from my perspective, and you can't drink money.
That's a pretty profound statement. I guess you can't. Liquid gold. No, I guess that's something different. No, I guess you can't drink money. You're right. Oliver, I thought you wanted to. I saw you wanting to jump in on the job question too.
It just, sort of with the pipeline and with the food aid and with everything else, it just sort of shows, I think, at least for now, that Biden is learning the lesson that we learned from Obama, which is if you meet them halfway, they're still going to punch you in the face, right? And Trump was a big punch in the face overall to the Obama, years, was a total FU to the Obama years. And even with Obama himself, it was always, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And Obama always tried to meet them halfway. And I mean, Biden's inclination, we all know this. This is something as liberals, I think we worry about, is that Biden wants to meet them halfway because that's just how he is. That's his mode, and that's what that kind of language helped him win as well. But in practical, everyday actions, like I have this feeling that if he sticks to it, and if congressional Democrats stick to it, which is a lot of ifs, but if they all stick to it, they're gonna learn that this whole conservative idea that America really wants to tighten its belt and reduce the deficit is going to evaporate when they get jobs, when they get food. They're going to say, hey, I like these things. That's a very bipartisan. Eating and drinking and not having a virus is super bipartisan.
Yeah, but it's also the case that the deficit jumped under a Republican. More so than it jumped under any of the Democrats in recent history. And it wasn't just the pandemic that caused it to jump. It was the tax cut without proper guardrails on the side. It was just really piss poor planning that caused such a deficit problem. And that was under the Republican president. And I honestly believe that the Biden administration, yes, they have to do things now to make up for the lack of a coordinated pandemic response in the last year. But once that's done, I have a feeling that he and even a Democratic Congress are going to still be able to reduce the deficit over time, even with benefits offered to more people, because ultimately that does end up contributing back as long as you reimpose certain tax initiatives and other initiatives that have been in place for decades, coming from Republicans just in the 30s and 40s. But that's
one of the
my thought on it is I think that both sides believe in reducing the deficit, but that's also one of the ways that I very much lean towards the Republican side of the House anyway.
No. That's absolutely correct. I mean, one of the things, this happens every few cycles where Republicans become Republicans when there's a Democrat in the White House. That's when they start deficits and the debt, and how dare we leave this burden? How dare we leave this burden to the next generation? But they then they do a tax cut without any kind of a compensatory spending cut. Or the only kind of spending cuts that they impose are on the social side, as opposed to, say, defense, or coming up with like a truly bipartisan entitlement kind of control mechanism. And the interesting thing about Donald Trump, among going back to Bush and Reagan and things like that, Donald Trump didn't even try to be a hypocrite on the spending side. He didn't care about that, and he made a point about that when he was running in 2016. He said, I don't care too much. He said, he made stupid promises like, I'll reduce the deficit within 8 years or some such silliness. He didn't take that seriously.
He still has 4 years to get it sorted out.
and of course, then the pandemic hit. But even before the pandemic hit, he'd already added about a trillion in debt as well already. Now,
I think you proved that voters don't care about that, right? Like we've suspected for a long time that voters don't actually care about it. And Trump,
Dick Cheney said that back in 2002 or 2003. He said that the voters don't care about deficits, and so that is something that is something that Biden can try and take advantage of whenever he gets around to crafting his budget resolution, because as Republicans showed in 2017, you can push through a lot of policy options using what they call budget reconciliation, which is you can craft what your tax policy and your spending policy is for the next several years, and you don't have to worry about breaking the filibuster, because it's something that can it's something that can be passed with a simple majority. Which leads me to the next question. Right now, the Senate is at something of a standstill, even though the Democrats have a technical majority because they've got 50 senators plus Vice President Kamala Harris as a tiebreaker. However, because the Senate is kind of an insane kind of an institution, the current rules that they're working under are carried over from the last Congress, and the two sides have to debate what the rules of the road are going forward. Mitch McConnell, who is about as tough a negotiator as one can find in these kind of situations, says that the Republicans are, not going to give up their advantage until the Democrats promise not to blow up the filibuster, if either this year or next year, while they still have the majority. So the question, so the question is, do the Democrats still continue to go back and forth on this, realizing that their power to completely set the agenda is held back until these rules are set out, or do they just blow it up? Do they just blow it up ahead of time? Oliver, I will let you go into this because having read your stuff for several years, I know you have thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is, I wish they would blow it up. I wish they would just, hit the accelerator and go for it, and Thelma and Louise grab the two hands and just go over the cliff. But the problem is, I don't like the Senate personally. I think the Senate should be abolished. That's where I support the Star Wars rule, where the Senate should just be completely removed and sent out into the galaxy. And I don't really think it's going to happen. That's the problem. Like, I don't trust the Senate to jettison the rules. They're really tied into the old ways of doing things. Senators are not, other than Bernie Sanders, most senators are super cautious. Even the liberal ones are super cautious. And then, the practical matter is right now the Senate is about pleasing Joe Manchin. Like Joe Manchin is the king of the Senate, and he is not someone who I see, unless we're going to build $1 trillion worth of highway in West Virginia, which is possible. I don't see Joe Manchin. Do it. They actually would benefit from it. It would provide lots of jobs for West Virginia. That might be the way, to do it. But otherwise, I don't see Joe Manchin being a Bernie Sanders radical and, putting on his bandana and saying, "Let's go for it, guys. Let's jump over the cliff." But, one can still dream. Anything's possible.
Well, one of the arguments in favor of the filibuster, which it should be pointed out, kids at home, the filibuster is not in the Constitution. It's something that has evolved over decades. It's not. There's an argument coming from the left that the filibuster was just created for the Jim Crow era. That's not quite true. However, some of its greatest power was exercised in Jim Crow. People like Strom Thurmond, Robert Byrd, they used the filibuster to either quash civil rights legislation or hold it back a lot. It's the number of votes to filibuster has shrunk over the years from 67 to 66 to the current 60, but the tradition of the Senate as being the body that cools the legislative passions that have been ginned up and steamed up in the House is still very strong. And it makes it difficult. Manchin's not the only one. I think there are some other Democratic senators who are very nervous about whether the filibuster should continue. So the question is, what do the Democrats do? Is there a way to get what they want without blowing up the system?
I support the notion of needing to recruit bipartisan support, because I feel like that's how you get a better bill. I think that if they are able to do things like do more there's a real word for it and I can't think of what it is right now, where it's a clean bill, so that it's no pork, no extra stuff for Alaska or Wyoming, just so you can get a transportation on Route 66 done or something like that. I strongly believe that we need more clean bills, more and because those have more bipartisan support. So if you are starting to look for stuff that is actually rational, and then you are incorporating, the only things that should be attached to these bills are things that are directly related. So, you know, in order to pay for this, we will enact this. So this this is where the money is coming from. And then you don't have to worry as much about the filibuster, because you can actually get 60 votes on something that is rational and good for the entire country and what you're really supposed to be doing as a federal body, as opposed to like a state appeal for more cash or for more or for whatever else. And that's just been my observation is we've got too much pork attached to things, and if we didn't, perhaps we wouldn't have so many problems getting the votes.
Except though the counter argument though on that, Alana, is that sometimes you'll have a big bill, and when I say big bill, I mean it may be a specific issue, but it is still kind of a big bill. And often the pork is added onto that to bring on a vote of an otherwise skeptical senator. And so then you try to break down the number of the filibuster by using the pork Senator Manchin, you need that extra road in West Virginia, or Senator Blunt in Missouri, you need this bridge over there. I know you're not thrilled with this healthcare bill, but if you sign on to it, we'll take care. So that is often that's the counter argument on that.
Also, just Republicans. Again, I'll just say Republicans do not argue in good faith 99% of the time. So this idea that you can, like, we'll just have a nice bipartisan talk with them. It's like, it just doesn't work with them. So they can't. They're beholden to their base right now. If their base was you, Alana, then I think that would be something that would be very possible. But that's not who they're talking to. They're talking to people who either want to storm the Capitol or think it was like kind of a decent idea, and that is kind of their message right now, and it's. I think that I'm glad Schumer is, for now at least, standing up to McConnell and saying that he's not going to agree to this, because, to be honest, even if he agrees to what McConnell wants, it's not like McConnell's just going to like go away, like, all right, thank you, now we're good, and now I'll play fair. McConnell doesn't do that. You have to just immediately right now kick him in the teeth. I mean, this is the best time to kick him in the teeth. McConnell doesn't play fair. He sucks. He's not a good person. There's no reason to treat him with respect or do anything that he wants. You need to just drown him. So go for it, is what I say.
Well, I will say this.
Drown him. Figuratively drown him. I know there's been a lot of violence. I'm just, all right.
I will say this: the filibuster, the power of the filibuster, has been eroded over the last decade or so, based on the political sensibilities of both sides, and we can unfortunately, we're not allowed to go for 2 or 3 hours. Otherwise, we could be going. We could look over the last couple of decades and show the various battles that have caused the filibuster to erode. But particularly within the last decade, the filibuster's power was voted down to remove the ability to filibuster appointments. judicial appointments, and then finally even Supreme Court appointments. So this really is the last aspect of the filibuster is on policy issues, and there is an argument, going back to the senior senator from West Virginia. There is an argument that his power would actually be enhanced if the filibuster was removed, because suddenly he becomes the all-important 51st vote on every issue, as opposed to being just one more vote getting us to 60. So and there's another point, and I wish I could take credit for this, is that something that Republicans proved over the last 4 years, with the exception of tax cuts, there really is no consensus on what Republicans stand for on a policy perspective. They definitely want judges, and they were willing to get rid of the filibuster to get Supreme Court justices through. Democrats have a policy agenda. And the question is, are Democrats as committed to getting their policy agenda through as much as Republicans were committed to getting their judges through? And then that's ultimately going to be the answer to that question is ultimately what's going to will resolve the question as to whether the filibuster ends up surviving the next 4 years or so.
I actually think it's disgusting that we got rid of the filibuster for things like Supreme Court justices. For any lifetime appointment should have bipartisan support. Like cabinet appointments, whatever. Make those can be party, because that's really who's. If that party is in power, then that party should be able to put in their own, Secretary of Defense. Although I like Austin, so, but. It's disgusting that we have now lifetime appointments that got 51 or 53 votes, all from one party, and now they're sitting there on the bench making decisions for the rest of our lives. And
but again, the precedent for that was when the judicial filibuster was killed for lower court appointments under Obama and Harry Reid.
Republicans were holding everything up in an unprecedented way. This isn't, again, it's Republicans have with your old buddy Newt Gingrich starting this, have acted in bad faith for the last 30 years, and it's the idea that that we're just now Democrats have to behave, have to be the adults in the room. The way you act as an adult right now is you say, no, we're going to pass good policy, and if we have to change that rule that you've already changed, we'll change it to help. We're not going to play at a disadvantage just because that's how you want us to play. That's just, it's not. It's not going to be, it's not what people voted for. It is not the thing that I think most people want at this point anymore. I think people want half-decent policy in there and half-decent policy to be made. And the only way to do that is to kill the filibuster.
Hannah, we didn't want to filibuster you out of the conversation. So if you've got
I missed that episode of Schoolhouse Rock, you guys, on the filibuster.
See, I just think of Patton Oswalt in Parks and Rec, standing up and doing his cross genre filibuster at the city council meeting. So I'm with you with Schoolhouse Rock over here.
That's right.
There you go.
As for me, stop. I'm gonna say it. Stop fucking around. People need sound policy. People are still dying of a deadly virus. Stop fucking around and govern. We need leadership, like the deprivation of sound leadership through so many crises. Lead. If you're a leader on any level of government, lead.
Yeah, and and honestly, the thing is, if the Democrats go too far by changing the rules, we've got elections. Like I feel like that's the great corrective in all of this. Like if we, my side of the aisle goes too far, and if the people say you're doing too much, you've gone crazy with judges and regulations and this and that, like just I like the sort of British system where one party's in control, you get to do, push through your agenda, and then you have a referendum, and the people either say, hey, you're doing a great job, let's keep doing it, or they go, you guys done screwed up, and we're going to go with the other guys. And Republicans can make that case, and maybe this will encourage Republicans to be more pro-election, because then they'll say, see, we need more participation because the Democrats have gone nuts.
Well, on a related note, one thing that that Republicans pushed and Democrats acceded to over the last couple of over the last few days was pushing back the timeline on impeachment. And so the House will deliver the impeachment papers to the Senate on Monday, I believe, but the trial won't occur to until February 8th. Now there are two ways of looking at this. By pushing it back to 2 weeks, it allows the Senate to confirm, if not all, a whole lot of Biden's cabinet, and maybe actually to start looking at some of the legislative items like coronavirus relief and so forth. The other thought, though, is by pushing it to 2 weeks away, it allows Republicans to forget there were people storming the Capitol, and it looked like the President of the United States was inciting them to do it. So, what are your thoughts? Was it smarter to hold back on impeachment, or should they have just bitten the bullet and gotten to it right away?
I flipped on this because I initially thought they should go quickly. I think there was a period where, if you can do it in like a week, do it. But I've flipped, and I now sort of it more in line with what we've been talking about. What Hannah was just saying. You gotta, at this point, the thing people need is they need help. We need to pass policy, and I think, in the spirit of one of the things that I think Biden is doing best is not naming Trump and not giving him. He sort of mentioned, like, look, all that stuff that happened with Trump, it happened, but and we're not ignoring it. But we're also, it's like, I'm not even going to speak his name because we're just going to do things differently now.
What happened to President Voldemort anyway?
Yeah, but it's like, look, we're doing things differently now, and I'm going to work to try to get you the help that you need. And I think that one of the things I hate most about the people on my side is how much we sometimes get focused on, like, we got to tear down Trump. And it's like, no, we got to help people. Like, that's what we have to do. We don't have to tear down Trump. I am 100% okay with Trump and everybody else going scot-free if we actually pass good policy in exchange. I will take that trade 100 times out of 100. 100 times out of 100. If those are the options, I mean, okay with it. Maybe that's that's not right. But I will, if those are the choices I have to make, which one do I have to do? I will take good policy and what we have to pass, getting the help, versus focusing on Trump. I don't want to think about Trump anymore.
They don't have to mutually.
I think there was some disagreement from the choir on that. Alana, did you have something you want?
Having worked in counterterrorism operations for as long as I did, you can't let this go unanswered.
It's not going on.
Well, but I think it needs to be publicly addressed, because otherwise you are only encouraging and emboldening the people. I mean, granted, your serious, your Q crazies are now feeling abandoned because, you know, nobody was executed on the day of the inauguration, but now it's, you know,
executed. Nobody was even arrested, Alana. Where were the arrests? Where were the arrests?
We were so let down, but you know, he just got on Marine One like there was supposed to be a huge like uprising fanfare, and nothing. So disappointing. But it's this case of like, once that feeling of abandonment goes away, they are, if nothing is shown to be evidence that this was a bad thing, all you're going to do is embolden him to come back, his ardent supporters to start taking control and getting in political positions. You already have QAnon people in government positions, in elected positions in Congress, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And you need to do something about it, and it has to be public. I actually strongly, the only reason why I agree on taking their time on the Senate in terms of this is because I believe that they need an actual trial, and they need to present evidence. They need to show what was wrong. They need to do this, and they need to take the time to actually sit there and do it. I don't think it has anything to do with pushing through the policy. I think they're looking at doing it correctly with splitting time. The Senate should be able to do more than one thing at a time, which is crazy, but they should be able to do, like, you should be able to accomplish more than one thing a day, guys.
Alana, the Senate has demonstrated that it can't even do one thing at a time, even considering even more than one thing at a time. But Hannah, you wanted to get in on this.
Yeah, in my true like Midwesternness, it doesn't have to be mutually beneficial. It's not an either or situation. People can get the policy they need, and Trump can be held to justice. Like, this is the direction we need to go. If there's one silver lining of having a fucked up wrecking ball of a president, it's that now things are, we're living in rubble right now, but that's okay, because it's like, what's the new foundation and what's our direction, and let's fucking do it. Like, I think at the order of things, people are still dying, people are going without food, going without work. So you address those, but you don't let a motherfucker like Trump out of your sights. And you definitely have to send a message, not only to him, but to anybody who's getting down in that way.
Right, yeah. But my point was trying to be, I was focused more on, like, I think the FBI is going after doing things. I'm more focused on like real. I'm not saying let Trump off the hook. I'm saying I want more like action rather than like a ceremonial sort of like, we got him, like that sort of thing. Like that was my major point.
Oliver, before you say anything, I just wanted to throw this quick point in. So the New York Times reported on Friday night that Trump was trying to push out the acting Attorney General at DOJ, the person that Bill Barr had left, to run the place when he quit just before Christmas. They tried to push him out in favor of a Trump acolyte. So the Trump guy could try to force upon Georgia to toss out their electoral votes and basically give the state over to hand over those electoral votes to Trump. As it happened, the professional class at DOJ said, if you try to do this, we're all quitting, and Trump ended up backing down. Now, this apparently was before his now notorious call to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, Georgia. So the question I've got, if we wait 2 or 3 weeks, there's going to be this kind of balance between Republicans who are recoiling against whatever's coming out of the Biden administration and feeling that if they acquit Trump, that's a good way to show their Republican bona fides, because the base is getting even more hostile towards Biden. Or over that next 2 or 3 weeks, this may just be the tip of the iceberg of what we find out of what Trump was up to in his last 2 months, which could add more evidence and ammunition to the case for conviction. So, Oliver, I know you had some other thoughts, but I was just kind of wondering, in that context, how do you think the politics of impeachment might end up playing out over the next couple of weeks?
Well, the thing is, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Department of Justice actual crime sort of thing, just because history has shown us that most of these guys never truly get in trouble with it. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, it never seems to pan out. And I mean, and not even
Nixon did resign.
But I mean legally, the legal part of it, right? He resigned.
Sorry, Oliver, they didn't execute Richard Nixon. I know that you still are upset, but I'm sorry it didn't happen.
No, but so I feel like the political side of it is actually very important. Not just, it's symbolically important, but it's just important for the country where, if you go back to the Bush to Obama transition, and I supported it at the time. And I think that was, one of our collective mistakes was this idea of let's turn the page, they wrecked everything. Let's turn the page. Let's move on. And what we've seen over the last, 12 years now is that mindset allows a whole lot of really bad people and bad actors to kind of just get away with it. And I think if we have a Senate trial for Trump, even though he's not in office anymore, it creates a scarlet letter, if not for, specifically the people that supported him, for this mindset. It says this is not okay in America. What just happened in the last 4 years is not okay. And even if we can't really send you to jail for it, that would be like the cherry on top. But otherwise, there is a scarlet T on the foreheads of everybody behind this, from Mitch McConnell to, even the new QAnon people. And going forward, we can say, hey, this is the red line. We impeach you for doing these kinds of things. And so if someone proposes this same kind of mindset, 4, 8, 12 years from now, we can say, that's what we impeached that last dude for. And we can go to America and say, are you going to go with the impeachable stuff, or are you going to go with, normal conservatism, republicanism, and not this crazy stuff? And so that's the part of it that I like. And I, it's unusual that the Senate is actually doing something that I like, but if they're delaying it a few weeks and we're still going to do it, I'm cool with that, as long as we do it. If they move away from it, then I'll be in the streets, Antifa rioting with my pitchfork. But otherwise,
as you were on January 6th, we know that you were in there. We know you had that.
I had a selfie in the rotunda, right? And so the FBI is after me. But no, so that's my point of view on it. Go for it. Delay it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Fine, as long as you do it. That's my thing. You got to do it.
Okay. Well, that sounds good, and that actually sounds like a pretty good place for us to stop. However, before we completely finish up here, James Heskey, where can folks find you online and in the social media world?
All my social media is just my name, just at James Heskey, HESKY, and so you can find me there, and Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I guess, if we're still doing that, trying to, I talk a big game, but support all the places that are helping to bring down democracy.
Excellent. Hannah?
Sure. I'm kind of a bad millennial at this. You can only find me on Instagram at Unstoppable. And you'll catch me every once in a while in the old school sketch show community who does digital performances at the pit and through YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. Alana?
You can find me at either Alana Duffy on Twitter, or you can find me at Pathfinder Labs on like the Insta who's it's, what's it's. I'm also a terrible millennial. But yeah. So that's pretty much the two mainstays of where I'm at.
Okay. Okay, millennial. Oliver, where can folks find you?
For the non-millennials, for us old folks,
Yes.
Right?
In my defense, I'm actually not a millennial. So.
In my defense, I am.
Gen X represent, but you can find me on Twitter at @OWillis, and that's where I do most of everything. It's at @OWillis. If you don't like the politics, come for the puppy pics. So.
There you go. That's fantastic. And me, Robert George, you can find me at Rob George on the Twitters. You can find me at Rob George 29 because I'm like in that Jack Benny Forever 29 kind of thing, on Instagram. You can also find me in my day job at Bloomberg Opinion, which is at BOpinion on Twitter. So that's it. Thank you all. It's been great filling in for the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Brennan. Robert George. I'm out of here, and I'm now giving it back to the man himself. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Robert. Wonderful conversation. That's it for this week's Electoral Dysfunction. Thank you so much for being with us. Before we get going, just want to say a quick thank you to newsboy Phil Casale for stopping by. And as always, thank you to Declan Shalvey and Jordy Belair for creating the Electoral Dysfunction Eagle art. Thank you to Kevin Scott for doing our show animation, Joanne Harris for creating our show theme song. Thank you to Ned Thorne and Amanda Nicastro who helped me put this together every single week. And thank you to Robert George. Well done moderating. Yeah, the unity. I'm feeling it. All over, just dripping with unity. And on that note, playing us out this week's show, I'm very excited to have this gang with us again. They are the femme foursome of pussy-powered pop rock. Here with one of their great shows pre-pandemic from a place I love, and I say my fond farewell, Boot and Saddle in Philadelphia. Our old pals, Girl Poop. Ned Thorne. Star wipest to Girl Poop.
Wow. You're so helpful. Yeah. It's because I got a dick. Oh, you're helpful because you have a dick? Well, get that dick inside me, you dirty son of a gun. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. His dick, it did slip, oh, I slipped in his dick. It slipped, oh, it slipped, dick. His dick slipped into my butthole. What a jarring sensation it was, Oh, my body sees like you wouldn't believe. It hurt, oh, it hurt so fucking bad. His dick, it did slip, oh, I slipped in his dick. It slipped, oh, it slipped, dick, dick. I proceeded to run to the restroom and peered at the crime scene behind. It was glossy and bloody and a teeny bit muddy. Boy, was I in a bind. His dick, it did slip, oh, I slipped in his dick. It slipped, oh, it slipped, dick, dick. I started to feel dizzy. My breaths grew shorter and shorter. I tried to get myself together